Mr. President, I should welcome you properly to OZY and thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Who were your coaches along the way? Who gave you kind of meaningful advice and guidance, both pre-presidency and frankly while you were the commander-in-chief?
I learned a lot about how to do things and how to think about things from Yitzhak Rabin and Nelson Mandela. Mandela really taught me why, in practical terms, hatred was a dead bang loser. I remember asking him when I said, you know, Mandela, when you left prison for the last time, you remember when he walked down that road and got in the car and went out the gate? Okay, so I got Chelsea up that morning and I sat her, she was 9, I think 10 maybe, and I sat her on the kitchen counter and we watched it. I said, now, right before you went out, I know that you later invited your jailers to your inauguration. You even put the people who put you in prison in your cabinet. But didn't you hate them again? He said, briefly, I did. But he said, I realized if I hated them when I got outside that gate, I would still be their prisoner. I wanted to be free, so I let it go. I mean, he would say things like that and he had the credibility to say things like that. And he looked at me, because I was in a big political fight with the Republicans at the time, he looked at me and smiled, he said, you should too, that's what you should do.
Were you able to do that with Newt Gingrich and others? Were you able to breathe deeply?
I got a lot done with Gingrich. And half the time I thought, you know, if he could shoot me in a dark alley, he probably would, but who cares? We're here for a brief time, we got a lot to do, let's get it done. And so I learned a lot from him. Rabin I learned a lot from, because he risked his life, he ultimately gave his life to reconcile with people that he had fought all his life. And he looked at me once and he said, their children are not responsible for what they did. And our children are not responsible for what we did. So he said, it's best to make these decisions for the benefit of our children, not for settling our scores. I mean, you know, those are the lessons you never forget. I learned a lot from Helmut Kohl.
Former German chancellor.
Yeah, his wife walked barefoot at 12 out of East Germany into West Germany. He had this sweeping sense of history. He said, I have to unify Germany, but then I have to unify Europe, and we have to let Eastern Europe in so that Germany will be in the middle of Europe and we will never again be the cause of a war. So people will trust us when we get bigger and bigger. And he said, I don't want to let Russia fail economically. Everybody's forgotten that because now they found all this energy, but at the time they were too poor to bring their soldiers home from the Baltic states at the end of the Cold War.
And people feared that they were going to sell their arms.
Yes, Kohl and I basically gave them the aid to bring their soldiers home. And there were times when I spent a lot of your tax money to keep half of the 40,000 Russians who worked in chemical, biological, and nuclear fields employed because they couldn't, and we didn't want them to go to work for me. But Kohl kept saying, look, he says, Europe, the European idea that we should be free and democratic and at peace. He said, you know, we have a chance now. We have a chance. But he said it's a struggle between putting things together and falling things apart. And he wanted he wanted Germany to be able to deploy its troops outside Germany for the first time, so he could be part of the NATO effort in Bosnia and Kosovo, you know. And I watched him. He was so seared by what happened in World War I and World War II, and he wanted Germany to be a force for good in the world, and he wanted the Germans to be prosperous. But he knew that it had to work in a way that was good for everybody else. He was really smart about that. So I learned a lot from those three people. The big lesson is that we're better off with this law than without it. Without it, we had gotten the 17.8% of our income on health care, only insuring 84% of our people.